Hi there, it is Jo here from Minerva, and today we're here with something a little bit different. We're going to take a look at some zero waste or minimal waste sewing. When you're looking for your sewing patterns or styles you'd like to wear, then I'd like to encourage you today, with some of the information that I give you, to maybe try out some zero waste sewing. I've been really enjoying learning lots more about this sewing concept. I've been using the book Zero Waste Patterns by Birgitta Helmerson. So although Minerva don't specifically sell zero waste patterns, I feel that with some knowledge of zero waste cutting and some of the sewing techniques to get a minimal or zero waste garment, I can really choose some fabric from Minerva that I really love, and I know that I'm not going to have any waste, and I may be buying less yardage in the first place. There's lots of ways you can reduce waste, so we have another video here which is all about how to use up your scraps and what you do with them and how you store them, but this one is more specifically about zero waste. In this video you'll see concepts like this, where you use up some different fabric for your facings or internal pockets or any internal construction of your garment. So this one is the New Look shell top. I'll list the pattern below, and here I only had a really small sample of the fabric. It was when the viscose linen fabric was first coming out, and I had my hands on some pretty quick. I made this top with a really small amount of fabric by cutting this bit out of some spare chambray. Another favourite pattern of mine for using lots and lots of little bits is the Victoria blouse. So this is my Victoria blouse. It may not look like it, but it's the Victoria blouse hack with the V-neck and the pleat on the back. Here I've pieced together lots of brights from the Minerva exclusive core range, taken bubble lights as my main colour on the front, and I've pieced together lots of viscose challis. Viscose challis is the more trickier fabric to try and use up. However, if you're looking specifically for a zero waste pattern where you're using the same fabric through the continuity of your item, then you can take a look at some zero waste pattern cutting and some patterns by different designers. This one is by Elizabeth Haywood, and for a zero waste cut shirt it has a lot of features. It has a pocket, pin tucks, cuffs, placket linings, a collar, a yoke line detail, and a split shirt hem. I'm wearing mine out at the moment just so that you can see all the features, but you can use it in lots of different ways. There are a few zero waste designers out there to look out for. So Birgitta Helmerson is the designer from the book that I've been using, and there's one called Elizabeth Haywood and another one called Chris Wood if you're looking to explore further. I don't know about you, but when I've seen zero waste patterns before and maybe some of the imagery that surrounds it, I'm not always overly inspired by the look. They're always very oversized, and there is still an element of that even when you start making it yourself. And also the fabric choices are not that inspirational for me because I love a lot of colour. This one is a gauze fabric, and it was just in my stash. It's not from Minerva. It was a piece that I wanted to try for my first zero waste project, and although it's a toile, I absolutely love it. So it's always worth making the garment up in a fabric that you think you would definitely wear. When you're choosing a fabric, you need to be thinking a little bit about the print on it. So if you do want to move your sewing from that sort of linen look, oatmeal, folksy kind of look that's often shown in zero waste imagery, and you want to move to a print fabric, just do need to be a little bit careful, because zero waste patterns are sometimes cut with the fabric coming up your back and over your shoulder. So if you've got a fabric with a directional print, you might start to hit a few snags. If you've got birds, fish, animals, flowers, or anything like that that tips the pattern over, then you'll get a strange sort of pattern placement. This fabric was fine. Geometric prints are pretty good because you can swap those around. But today I'm going to use a shibori fabric from the viscose linen look range from Minerva. I'm steering clear of the structured fabric of linen and cotton, and I want to choose something with a little bit of drape because I know I can't completely avoid the oversized nature of zero waste patterns, because that's what means there's not much waste, because we're not cutting shapely pieces, we're not taking little bits of fabric off for fitting. So I've chosen this one. This is a shibori fabric. It's got a linen look. It's an eco-vero fabric, so it has really good sustainable credentials, which you can look up and find out all about. Vicky does have a video on this if you want to find out more about those sustainable credentials. I'm hoping that today, with the drape of this fabric, I'm going to overcome some of that oversized nature of the garment and hopefully get something that's got a real sort of flow and fluidity. If you're looking for a fabric with fluidity, then you need to sort of take your magnifying glass down a little bit smaller. So you'll need to be looking for what is the fibre content. So drapey fabrics tend to have a viscose content, lyocell, tencel. All of those fibres will bring a drape. So you might get a viscose linen, so the viscose will add drape to the linen. You might have a tencel cotton, so then that will make the cotton less structured. Or you might have a tencel chambray, so that will stop the crispness of the chambray and give it an element of drape. So do check out the fabric's credentials down the side. That will give you the fibre content. One of the key features of zero waste cutting is the width of fabric that you buy. So if you normally just shop by print or print alone or colour, then just take an extra second to look at your fabric's width. The fabric width will determine what size you can cut, and with the size diagrams from the book that I've been using, you can use different widths for different sizes, but you want to make sure that you're getting a good width of fabric. You'll be having pattern pieces that move in different directions, so you want to have as much width as possible. Because of the oversized nature of zero waste cutting, then quite often you're not always using the fabric on its straight grain, so you might be having your fabric the other way around, but because you've got that oversized nature and a little bit more ease, then you don't need to use the grain line of the fabric quite so much as if you were making something really fitted. When zero waste cutting, you're drawing straight onto the fabric. I really love that. I didn't realise how quick it would be if you just draw straight onto the fabric. It was so much faster. Of course, you're not using paper, so you don't have to cut out your paper pieces and then pin them all down and then cut. You can just draw straight on and cut. It was so quick. You'll need for this a ruler, a marking tool, and a good space to cut out. It's difficult to cut out on the floor because you'll need to be really accurate with your cutting. In the book that I've been using, it does feature a very inclusive size range, so it goes from UK size 6 up to UK 30, but I kind of just trying out today a couple of the garments just to find the size, or the size that I like, and I don't have to have everything very oversized, so I'm going to just take my size down a little bit, see what happens. That's the best way to find out about sewing. Today's video isn't a sew along because I don't have copyright to do anything with the patterns from that book, but I just want to show you some of the concepts of zero waste sewing, some of the sewing techniques, and some of the things that you might think you would really like to bring to your sewing at the moment. I'm going to split the video into two sections. So one section is going to be making a pair of elasticated trousers, and the second section is going to be to make a singlet top. I'm hoping that I can work together with those and they'll work as a co-ord set, or possibly even a sort of faux jumpsuit if I tuck them in. But I just want to show you how easy it is to cut, to sew, and to change your sizing, or to change any little parts of the pattern for your own body proportions. Let's go and cut out first. There's a couple of different ways you can cut. Sometimes you're just cutting without any pattern pieces at all, and sometimes you'll have a little pattern piece that cuts out a piece that you use somewhere else. For this pattern, this is called the Pierce shirt. This was brilliant. This was all the pattern pieces were on one rectangle, and you put that on your fabric, so I knew I definitely got the right width and length. And then I could have cut through, I could have pinned it down and then cut through the paper and the fabric at the same time, but then I would have untessellated all of the shapes within that rectangle. So instead of cutting through it all, I just traced it off with a serrated wheel and some carbon paper. I took the whole rectangle off at the end, folded it up, put it back in the packet. It's just one sheet, it was great. And then I cut out the pieces following the carbon lines. So next time I want to make this shirt, I can do exactly the same. I can just open out one pattern sheet and draw around it. The trousers and the singlet that you see today, that's more a little mix of little pattern pieces and measuring with a ruler and a marking tool. My fabric is folded right side to right side so that I can draw, and I've squared up all of the fabric. I've got the right fabric width and the right fabric length. The width will be determined by the size that you choose. You might need to turn your fabric around depending on which size you're cutting so that you can get the right length and width. That's all in the size charts in the book. This is the crotch piece. So there's the crotch curve. And this is the crotch length, so you'll be able to choose and adjust that. I'm not quite sure how deep I want that because I normally shorten my crotch length. Using the measurements from the book, I'm going to place the crotch piece in a measurement position for my size, and I'm going to draw around the pattern piece directly onto the fabric with some chalk. And then for the other side, you can put that in different positions for the front and back if you want to, so you can make it deeper for the back or deeper for the front depending on your body proportions. Next, I'm going to take a ruler and then I'm going to join up the 2 points at the bottom of each of those crotch markings, and that will be my inside leg. And that's it. That's just a case now of cutting on those chalk lines to create a pair of trousers. You'll gradually see a pyjama bottom shape emerging from the fabric. There you are. You can see the inside leg seam and the crotch shape, and then these crotch pieces will be cut out and saved, and they're going to be used for the back pockets. They'll be seamed down the centre, and I'll show you how to construct that in the next part of the video. For some patterns you need the fold line to create a centre front, but for these trousers I'm going to cut down the outseam to complete my trouser pieces. Remember the pieces we cut out of the crotch for the trousers? Well, those immediately will go to make the 2 back pockets that go on the back of the elasticated trousers. Here's how you construct them, and it's quite a nice skill to have if you want to use that in something else. To start the pocket construction, you piece together the crotch pieces with the curves on the outside, then you can fold down the top as long as you want. It's really good, that fold down top, because it means lighter fabrics have a little bit more stability across the top of the pocket where you put your hand in and out. Next, you turn the pocket right side out, so just work those corners, don't push them through, but I've used the seam allowance as a facing, and my point turner just means that I don't have to snip the corners off and weaken the fabric. I kept that stitch line running all the way round. So now I've followed that, meaning that my pocket is all turned in. It's ready to put on the trousers. Here's one I've done. Probably can't even see it because I've done a little bit of pattern balancing there, keeping the directional print of the fabric. I'm going to put the other pocket on in the same position, just lining up that vertical print in the fabric, pinning it in place, and then I'm going to top stitch. You can put the pockets wherever you want, higher or lower. I'm sewing pretty close to the edge, a bit more of an edge stitch there, but you can do it however you would like your finished garment to look. Once the pockets are attached, you are then going to continue putting your trousers together. So next up, we're going to sew the side seams. So far, you'll have the side seam. I've overlocked my edges to stop them fraying, and now I'm going to do the same along the crotch. So I'm going to join it with a seam line and then overlock the seam allowances together. It's just like making a pair of pyjamas. I haven't spent long making my trousers, but I've already got pockets, crotch. I've already hemmed up the bottoms, so I've got a narrow folded hem there, but you can try them on for length. It's always a good idea to try on your trousers for crotch length, so if you need to make any changes, you need to do them now before you add the elastic. The elastic is going to be inserted along a casing in the top of the trousers. So press down a casing, so there's a little bit of seam allowance, and then it's folded over, and I've measured it to make sure that the elastic fits through. That's all ready. The casing is sewn, and I have left a space there to put the elastic in. Here's the trousers finished. They've got quite a gentle gather on them. They don't feel oversized at all. The pockets on the back look pretty seamless. It's hard to spot them, but they are there. You can move those up or down. And I've hemmed the bottoms with a narrow hem, but you can hem them as high or as low as you like. Here are the trousers on. They're just a simple elasticated waist trouser, but in a drapey fabric. They've got a really, really nice feel. The crotch is a bit long, but I might change that. You can move the crotch piece up or down. It's got that casing. I put an extra row of stitching along the top there just to make it a little bit more professional. Pockets are on the back. And it's got a real nice floaty feel to it, a real summer drapey trouser feel. These are possibly a little bit long for me. I might turn those up a little bit more just to get the right length. But otherwise, I'm really happy. Okay, for part 2 of the video, we're going to take a look at this singlet top. So this is a zero waist pattern 2. This is a toile I made just to work out how the pattern all goes together. And there are a few things that I'd like to change. So the arm side dips quite low. So I'd like to raise that up a bit. But if I raise it up as far as I want the arm side, then the neck is too high here. So I want to offset that from that. These straps do come in and they're very close to the neck, which does expose your bra straps, and even though a thin strap like that wouldn't cover that, it does look a bit odd that I've got quite a distance between. I guess if I worked without a bra I wouldn't have that problem. I'm happy with the back, love the length, that's all fine. I like that it's got plenty of hip room. So let's go and cut another one of these out to go with my trousers, and I'll show you how to alter the piece here, or indeed the concept of altering any piece in a zero waist pattern. I don't want to give you the same cutting information here as the trousers. I'm just going to change this up a bit. So this is for the singlet top. You'll need to know your fabric's width and its length by measuring yourself with a tape measure, and your fabric will be right sides together. On this one, you'll have a strip off the side for my size, but this strip won't go wasted. It can be a minimal waist piece for something else, or I'm going to use it to make the binding for the rest of the singlet top construction. It'll be that piece off the end. I'm not going to cut this fabric out straight away. It's quite creased. I need it to be accurate. So I'm going to give this a little bit of a press, because all of these creases, especially this one here, look, it's really altering that size there by at least a centimetre. And every cut line is a cut line for a piece of fabric. There's no squaring up or trimming off. So let's go and iron this, and then we can draw our pieces. You'll find it so much easier with the flatter fabric, because now all of my measurements will be accurate. I'm going to use my pen and my ruler. Those will be needing for cutting out and drawing on directly to the fabric. When I've cut this piece, I'll be folding it in half so that I can cut out the singlet pieces. First of all, I need to make sure that my piece is the correct width and length for my size using the chart from the book. Once I've got my piece in a single layer cut accurately, I'm going to now fold it in half to recreate what I need to lay out the pattern. Those edges need to be really square because they're not the edge of the fabric, they are now becoming the edge of a pattern piece. If these aren't accurate, then your pieces won't fit together. This is the pattern piece for the singlet. It's just this one little piece, and it's going to make the armholes, and it'll be in different directions. You can change this to be however you want, so you can make the curve different, you can add different angles. You won't know until you've made a toile. So on my toile, I want to move the straps so that they're not so close to my neck, and I want to raise the arm side up a little bit. I'm going to do that on my pattern piece by changing that curve shape and also the depth of it. I've used the piece to chalk on where I need to, following the instructions from the book, and I learnt from my pattern cutting for my trousers to pin where the line is that I'm heading for, because the two pieces of fabric move around a little bit. This straight line here I need to cut really accurately, because that edge is going to be the pieces for 4 different parts of my singlet top, so it needs to be really accurate. The pins just stop it shifting around so that both the front and the back are the same. Those little curves that I cut out there will become the hemline facings, which we'll talk about in a bit, and you'll eventually here see the shape of the front and back of the singlet. I am utilising the fold on this cut, so this one is the front piece and the back will have a seam running down the centre back, and those little pieces that I cut for the arm side will be used as facings along the bottom. I can put my top together now, sewing up this side seams. One of the top skills that I found useful, which you might want to go and sort of brush up your skill on, is how to make a continuous binding strip from a square. Because when you square up your fabric to get the right width for your size, you might have a piece on the end, a square or a rectangle or a strip, and they're much easier to use than sort of curved shapes that then get taken off grain. Those strips are really great for making binding, which is very often used for going around armholes or neck holes or for binding a hem. You can go and find out how to do that in my binding video. It's really slowed down. Sometimes I've seen people showing one on Instagram, but it's really, really quick and then it's hard to follow. I'm going to show you here today, but I'm going to go through quite quickly. But if you want this footage slowed down, you can check it out here in the binding video. To find the binding video, you go to Minerva's YouTube channel, and in the search bar, if you put binding, all the videos to do with binding will come up on the search. This might be quicker than some of you would like, but here's a rectangle and you fold a 45-degree angle on the one end. You can do it with a square or you can do it with a rectangle. Squares are better, slightly stretchier fabric. And you cut that 45-degree angle piece off. And then you're going to move that piece, because it's got the 45-degree angle on, and sew it to the other end. You use a 1/4 inch seam allowance here. 1/4 inch is key for the whole thing. That's what you're going to use throughout. And when it's sewn on, you get yourself a little parallelogram that's got a bias stretch. Next, you draw lines on the fabric, which are 4 centimeters apart. You can see them there. And now you're going to fold your fabric back into a square, but you're going to offset those lines going across. So pull the top up and the bottom down until you line up the next set of lines. It's back to 1/4 inch again, and you're going to join those two edges together. Be really accurate with your pinning here. You need to put the pin absolutely through the line. It won't work otherwise. So here I'll show you closely. You put the pin in 1/4 inch below the raw edge, and then 1/4 inch below the raw edge on the matching line and pin. If you just put the edges together and pin them just like this, then they won't match up. You can see there that line is at a different place to that line, so you just need to do them piece at a time. It's because the fabric is cut on the bias, so it's a little bit stretchy. There we go, that's more accurate. And then you take a seam line all the way down there, so you've got a continuous tube. Once it's sewn, you should have one line hanging lower down than the others because you offset the lines, And then very carefully, without cutting underneath, you're going to cut that spiral out along the lines. Be as accurate as you can because that's going to be the finished edge. And you will have a continuous bias strip of fabric. This strip can now be turned into bias binding. You can use a binding tool or the electric binding machine, or you can just fold the edges into the centre. For a small piece of fabric that's an offcut off the end of your fabric, you can get a surprising amount of bias binding. So to use the binding on the arm side, then you put the fabric with the right side of the binding against the wrong side of the armhole, pin it in place, and then you'll be able to flip it over and top stitch from the right side. It's a great way to finish armholes, necklines, and also in this case to create straps that go over the shoulder. Do you remember those arm cyc pieces we cut out there for the singlet top? Well, they are now going to be used as facings for the side split openings around the hem. I'll show you how it works. It's a popular technique that's used in lots of zero waste sewing. So the armholes are done and the straps here. And now let's turn to the hemline. So we've got side splits at the bottom. I've overlocked the hemline and I've also overlocked the facing pieces. Wherever you place them will give you a seam allowance at the bottom for your hemline, so you can put them wherever you want depending on how deep you want your hem. You're going to pin them in place along the slit edge, and you're also going to sew along the bottom of those hemline facings. When you've sewn along that hemline facing, carry on sewing along your hemline. That will give you a guide for turning up your hem later. And then you're going to turn it out. So flip the fabric and fold it into a right angle. It really supports the corner. It stops it going all floppy and you get a really neat point. Also, you're not cutting any fabric off and you're not making the corner a weak place. Roll and work out that facing piece. So everything's flat, pop a pin in, and then you can continue to pin the hem using that stitch line as a guide. I'm going to top stitch because it gives a really nice detail along the hem and around the curve of the facing. You might need to do a bit of a forwards and back tack there so that you secure the corner of your side split. Go carefully round the curve because you want to make sure that that doesn't bubble up and it stays nice and flat. Bar tack there at the side split and then continue to sew along the hemline. This is the effect you'll get, a real beautiful finish on the outside with that curved shape. It's very well weighted, so it makes the hem hang really nicely and you get a little bit of a swish with that lovely top stitching curve. Okay, let's try it on. Okay, so this is the top. Just move those straps in a little bit. I could wear a bra now or I could go without. It's got side splits at the sides. You can wear it loose and baggy, but I will probably be wearing this as a jumpsuit set. So the trousers are really nice and floppy. I'm wearing navy sandals today. Got a really nice wide leg. You can obviously change the crotch length after you've made them for your first go. You can move that crotch piece up or down. Do the same on the back. You can also have a little play around with that arm cut piece to change the direction of your straps or to change the height of your arm side. This is a really good fabric for this pattern choice. It's the Linen Look Shibori. It's got a viscose content, so that's where you're getting the drape from. I think some of those concepts are really interesting. They're not for everybody, I understand that. And also I think it's important to make it a kind of no drama scenario. If you have got a little bit you need to cut off, then you need to cut that off for your length, or you've made the trousers a little bit long, then you turn them up again. What I'm thinking here is I'm really thinking about how to make minimal waste by having a go at some zero waste patterns. It's a good way to just have a go at something, try it out. If you're a beginner sewer, a lot of the sewing concepts are really simple. There's no zips, there's very limited buttonholes and some of the more complex techniques. So it's a great way for new people to hop on. I've had some really nice reactions to my co-ord outfit when I posted it on my feed on Minerva. I'm called 3 Stories High if you want to go and look at it. And was really surprised that so many people really on board with looking at it, and a lot of people said it didn't look like a zero waste pattern, and that's exactly what I wanted to achieve. I'd really like to know what you think about zero waste patterns. Do you have those sort of same feelings as me, which is the imagery hasn't really inspired you so far, but it is something you'd like to try? I know a lot of sewers do work really hard to try and use up their scraps, but the best way to deal with scraps is not to have any in the first place. I also feel with zero waste patterns, especially the zero waste pattern book that I've been using, which basically features a set of blocks, one for a basic tee, a woven tee, a singlet, trousers, skirt, dress, and then you can combine all of those things. I definitely feel that if you bring some more of your sewing skills to it, you can definitely change the shape. So on cuffs that are really big and sort of boxy, you can definitely pull those in with an elasticated cuff. You can change waistlines by adding rows and rows of shirring so that it brings it in. You can put channels on with ties through. You can have ties at the side, elasticated waist. I felt that after I'd made a few things, there was a lot of things I'd like to add to it myself. Finally, I had a few bits of gauze fabric left. So I've made the tiered skirt from the book. I added an extra tier because I had a few extra gauze scraps from some of my other projects. This one here is the same as the shirt because when I cut my fabric width to the right width for my size, I had one strip that ran down the side. Makes a really swishy summer skirt and I really, really love it. Because we don't sell zero waste sewing patterns, then I would really, really encourage you to use the hashtag ZW for zero waste in capital letters, or hashtag zero waste if you post anything on our website, because it really does help people who want to explore this area a little bit more filter down some of the projects there. I've been posting quite a bit on there with the hashtag zero waste or ZW, so you can go and find those. But really, we'd love you to add to that. So please do make an account over at Minerva. Share your makes. It doesn't have to be fabric from Minerva or patterns. We just want to see what the sewing community are up to. It's a real inspiration to both us, Minerva makers, and for you, because you can always go back and check some of your details. Thank you very much for watching. Do call back for more information. If there is something specific that you'd like to find out about zero waste, you can put that in the comments below. Maybe we could take this video concept a little bit further with zero waste.